What is up, guys? Thank you so much for tuning back into the channel. I am so thankful to have you here. So today we are going to dive into a very specific subject that I have been really diving into recently. It's just been so mind-blowing once I heard about it, and it is so prevalent to the fitness industry and the health industry, and I want to get this message out to people. We're going to be talking today about a low-fat diet and the dangers that come with it. So basically, you know, we have these government recommendations of the amounts of proteins, fats, and carbs we should be eating. And what research has been showing lately is that we are actually not getting enough fat, and the recommended fat to carb ratio is totally skewed and inappropriate for us as humans, and it's actually causing us a lot more danger to have these lower fat, higher carb diets than it would be to have high fat, low carb diets. And a lot of this research has been showing that high fat, low carb diets, moderate protein is the best way. It's the way that our ancestors have been eating for like ever before the agricultural industry started. We are so dependent now on carbohydrates, and our bodies are paying for it. And it has to do a lot with our insulin and our hormones and everything like that, but I am not going to go into all of the research behind it just because that would take a million years. I am going to link some links down below kind of talking about this, because it's something I've started to become very passionate about, because it is so prevalent and just like mind-blowing once you kind of see the research behind it. I highly recommend that you go and like research this stuff, because the real research is that we are eating horribly wrong, and even as like fitness coaches and even dietitians, like we weren't exactly taught the right things, and that's horrible because we're telling our clients the wrong things, and it's just like mind-boggling. And so I'm going to talk about kind of the dangers and risks of a lower fat diet today. To just kind of start out the video, I just want to say that fat is not bad, that our society and the government has kind of told us that fat should be avoided at all costs, that it causes heart disease and strokes and all of these types of things, and that is actually not true. And that's why I say to go look at the research. You can figure out why that is not true, and fat is actually our friend, and carbs are what is kind of causing the metabolic damage and the hormone imbalances and all that kind of stuff. So now on to the 7 biggest dangers of a lower fat diet. So number 1 is poor brain function. And I know that as a personal trainer through the American Council on Exercise, I was taught that your brain needs carbs to function properly. Well, the actual research now, and through like neuroscientists and physiology and all this kind of stuff, it's actually true that your brain runs on fatty acids and cholesterol. Whenever you're on a lower fat diet, you're going to experience things like poor brain function. You're not going to have as great of memory. You're going to have low energy, and you're going to have changes in your mood. Studies have shown that our brains actually perform 70% better when it's fueled by fat rather than carbohydrates. Number 2 is compromised heart health. This kind of goes against the popular belief that cholesterol and saturated fatty acids and high fat makes your heart health worse, and that it causes heart disease and heart attacks and all of that kind of stuff. This is actually false. There's very few evidence that actually supports this. What actually causes a lot of heart problems is inflammation. Inflammation comes from carbohydrates. What research shows is that a diet high in monosaturated fats, omega-3s, like all those heart healthy fats, is that it actually helps to improve your healthy blood lipid profile. It helps to regulate your blood pressure. It helps to improve your insulin sensitivity, which is a good thing. And finally, it regulates your blood glucose levels, which is extremely important. So whenever you don't have those fats in your diet, and you don't have the proper amount of fats in your diet, you're looking at decreasing your heart health. The third danger of a low-fat diet is hormonal imbalances. Now this goes for men and for women, and I've only done the research on women because I coach women and I am a woman, so I've only done research on the women's side. Men, this still applies to you, but for women, if we're not getting in the amount of fat that our bodies need, we are going to have an increased risk of infertility, we're going to have hormonal issues, and we're going to have menstrual problems. Now I'm going to hit really hard on this point because it is so prevalent in the fitness and health industry. Most of us are eating really low fat diets, higher carb, moderate protein. And what happens whenever we follow the typical American diet that the government recommends us is that we become pretty insulin resistant. And this for women can be horrible for our hormones. Not only does the insulin resistance lead to type 2 diabetes for men and women, but for women, this can lead us to having horrible hormonal issues and things like PCOS, infertility issues, and losing our menstrual cycle. So not only is it a huge danger to not be getting in enough fat, it can also be a huge danger to be consuming too many carbohydrates and messing with that without the fat, because it can screw us up as females. So please look at the research down below and really look into these things, because as a female, it's so important for us to be getting in enough fat so that our hormones can properly function. The fourth danger of a low-fat diet is weight gain and overeating. With a low-fat diet and a more moderate carbohydrate and moderate protein diet, your body becomes very dependent on glucose, and you actually decrease your insulin sensitivity, which makes your body hold on to fat. Also, with a lower fat diet, your metabolism decreases a lot faster. This in turn leads to the increased hunger and overeating, because whenever you have a low fat diet and you're primarily going to carbs and protein for your fuel sources, your body becomes insulin resistant and your body holds on to fat, and you have increased cravings. Your body is super dependent on the glucose that's always coming in, and leads to the whole hanger thing. Like, if you are hangry, you're probably not getting in enough fat into your diet because your body is so dependent on glucose, and your blood glucose levels are all over the place. And this is so true for me. Like, I have to eat like every 2 hours because my blood glucose is so all over the place and my body's so dependent on carbs. That's getting a little bit too much into the science. I digress. The fifth danger of a low-fat diet is an increased risk of insulin resistance and type 2 diabetes. Whenever we're not putting enough fat into our diets and we're putting a lot of carbohydrates into our diet, our bodies just become insulin resistant over time. And it doesn't actually matter what your calorie intake is. Even a person that's relatively healthy, they could even be in the fitness industry, if they're not getting in enough fat and they're primarily fueling their body with carbohydrates, they can too become insulin resistant, and that can lead to really big issues like PCOS or diabetes even. Type 2 diabetes is primarily from insulin resistance, so it's super important that we start to reverse these things and stop fueling our body with almost all carbs, and we start fueling our body with fats instead. The sixth danger of a low-fat diet is an increased risk for depression and anxiety. This is something that I've also been looking a lot into because I personally deal with depression and anxiety. What research has shown is that fatty acids play a huge role in our brain function, like I mentioned with the first point, but it can primarily play a huge role in the brain function that controls our mood. There are actually neurotransmitters that are synthesized from fatty acids, and so if we aren't getting in those essential fats, those neurotransmitters aren't being synthesized and our mood can really decrease. So a lot of this new research is showing that omega-3 fatty acids and all those other really healthy fat sources can actually really improve depression and anxiety. And that is just like absolutely huge that, you know, we can improve our mood with just increasing our fat intake. Now the final seventh danger of a low-fat diet is gut health problems. Now, if you know anything about gut health, you know that our bodies have a brain-gut connection, and our gut is like our second brain. Whenever you have a low-fat diet and you're primarily putting carbohydrates into your diet for fuel, that connection isn't as good, and it leads to gut problems like IBS and all other sorts of issues like bloating and all those things. So research has actually shown that a diet high in fat and in fiber can actually help that brain-body connection. Whenever we fuel our bodies primarily with fat and limit the carbohydrate intake, you're actually going to have a way more balanced blood glucose level. This also means that you're going to have a way more balanced blood sugar. Whenever you have a more balanced blood sugar, you can actually have more balanced gut bacteria, which is necessary to have a healthy gut environment. Just to recap, the 7 dangers that go along with a low-fat diet is going to be poor brain function, compromised heart health, hormonal imbalances, weight gain and overeating, a high risk of insulin resistance and diabetes, a high risk of depression and anxiety, and gut-related problems. So those are 7 risks that go along with a low-fat diet and primarily fueling our body with carbohydrates. Now I'm just starting to dive into this research, but I feel like I have a responsibility to tell you guys about this, and especially in the fitness industry. I mean, most of us women function with low-fat diets, moderate carb, moderate protein, and it can be absolutely detrimental to our health and to especially our hormones. I can tell you that even like fitness and health professionals, they develop insulin resistance, and that leads to hormonal issues like PCOS, infertility, and all sorts of problems with their menstrual cycle. So just because, you know, you think you're healthy and you're following your macros, you're following the 0.3 to 0.4 grams per pound of body weight, like that's actually not enough. And whenever you're fueling your body with mostly carbohydrates and very limited fat, you're really gonna run into some problems if you follow that long term. And that is just the raw hard facts. And so I highly recommend that you click on those links down below so that you can kind of dive into this research. Like, I'm not just pulling this out of thin air. You know, there's scientific research to back this up. And please do not blame, you know, your coach or a dietitian or a nutritionist or anything, because they were just taught in school to follow the government recommendations. But those recommendations are actually not that good for our bodies and can actually lead to a lot of issues down the road. So I know that even though these things sound kind of crazy because they kind of go against the beliefs that we've grown up with, and trust me, that's what I thought. I was like, what? This can't be true. Like, this is not what I grew up like learning. Like, even in school, like, were they lying to me? You know, but just keep an open mind and make sure to do your research, because these things are super important. We're talking about your health here, and especially as women, we really need to pay attention to our hormonal health. But really, I just hope that, you know, you guys keep an open mind and that you do your research and you focus on your health, number one. So please just look at the research below, kind of dive into it, keep an open mind, and kind of see what I'm talking about. And what I'm talking about is really based on. So anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video and that you got something from it, you learned something, or at least just kept an open mind. But that's going to conclude the video for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I will talk to y'all soon.